For the style guide for the Jim Crow Museum animations, we're going to do some thick lines on the outside of the figures and thin lines on the interiors. We'll use some shape color fills, and we'll use a variegated stroke in Animate. So here I am grabbing the pencil tool. It's very important to grab the pencil tool instead of the brush. Animate now has features where we can use variegated thicks and widths of the brush tool. So with the image underneath made to be transparent, I'm now going around and defining the form. I do like to draw with one width thickness in the beginning, and this is set to 3 in properties. So to have some interest, I'm doing some line that shows the textures of the hair. I'm doing interior lines for the face. This brush is set to be thin on both sides and thick in the middle. You can hit Command or Control Z to undo. So just turning on and off the reference to check it. I am drawing fully on a layer that's called Figure. Eventually the reference will not be there. So the eyeball will turn on and off the figure layer, the reference layer. Z is a shortcut for the zoom tool. So now I'm checking the sense of the entire body. We are in this project keeping things relatively realistic. Our goal is to use a variable stroke width using the pencil tool. The line color for the figures and important objects will be dark browns. We'll have thick lines around major shapes and medium lines in interiors of major shapes. Some medium to dark flat tone fills. So, like I said, I am drawing right now everything with the same width of my pencil, and then I can come around at the end and do a selection of the outside elements that I want, or some of the interior elements that I want to be thicker, make that selection, and then alter the size of that in the properties. Because it's pencil, if I had done it with a brush, I would not be able to do that. I'm also free to change the width to anything because it's a pencil, and that gives me a lot of freedom. We'll be filling with color blocks, tones, and emotional values. I'm converting the figure into a symbol. It's going to be a graphic symbol. I'm calling this by his first and last name, John Lewis. You can see there's a blue box around him now. That means that this is a symbol. I can come into this and name the symbol layers. So the way that I'm setting it up right now is to have the lines on one layer and the color blocks on another layer. So this is being named color blocks. Animate now does not allow you to use any special characters. So if you have a space, it's going to put an underscore. We're actually not using the color swatches that are native to Animate. We'll be using the color swatches that come in the universal design color palette. So I'm using the Universal Design color palette. I'm picking from that, and then I get it in my swatches. You can also add these to your swatches. This way we will know that they will work for all visual abilities. Clicking into the symbol. So now I have my paintbrush. This is the only time that we're going to use the paintbrush. It's going to be for color blocks, and I'm finding areas that I want to have dark and areas that I want to have light. I have my eraser. The eraser is set to normal right now, which means that it would erase lines and fills, but because I am on its own layer, I'm not going to be erasing any lines. So we're not going to be coloring the whole of the figure. We're not going to paint it super realistically. We're really just looking for shape color fills. This will draw attention to the narrative areas of the image. So who is he? In this particular story, I want to really emphasize that he's a student with his backpack. He's a peaceful resistor. At this point, I'm really trying some colors. They're not going to be final. You'll see in the final, I'm going to have these colors be much darker to reflect his skin tone, and the backpack will be much more almost black, but not fully black. We do want to be able to see line on black, so it ends up being sort of a darker gray. Little mustache and hair elements. These are the darker sections. I really want to kind of play with, at the most, really 3 tones. So we've got, currently these are the dark tones that I'm putting on, and then we're going to have light tones for skin tone and dark tones for the shadow. So we're going to play with kind of 2 tones other than the hair on this figure, John Lewis. Using my eraser to define. You can use brackets to bracket up. So next to the O and P on your keyboard, you can bracket. To the right goes up with your size of your brush stroke, and bracket down goes lower with your brush stroke. I have a new layer called Tone. This will be his darks. I am using the color picker right now, but you can see to the right of the screen I have the ICU Universal Design color palette that is advisable to pick from, making sure that we do not take away from the visual impact for all people. You can set your brush to paint behind, or you can, this one is set to normal, and that's because I'm on its own layer. I'm actually on the color blocks layer right now, but because I've got the brush set to paint behind, I'm not painting on the hair tones. And I recognize that this is too light ultimately for his skin tone, and I will later adjust that. Try to get your tones to be connected and fluid between each other. So you can see all of these shadows are all kind of one shape that is connected. If I had little dots of sections, it wouldn't feel as fluid and connected. So try to get that fluidity there. So I've just darkened parts that I felt like needed to go a little bit darker. You can select areas that got made by mistake, and then I can hit I to pick, and K is the dumper tool, and dump that in there. You can also lock layers to not gather them. You need to be on the layer to be able to change it. And now dumping. Going out to the main timeline, you can see the reference image and the paper image underneath. I'm going to turn the reference off and check it with the paper image underneath, and I'm seeing that the tone that I've selected is too light, especially for the paper, so his shadow tone needs to get darker, and that will be altered soon. So I'm selecting these tones that I know need to go darker, and I'm selecting them all at once and going to the swatches, which then gives me the color picker, and I can go down. I've got it set to HSB. H is what you click to make it look like what we're used to selecting from.